Hello and welcome to a new episode of Talking Snooker with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Once again, talking about the game we all love.
Yes, we are indeed. It feels like it's been a little while since we've been speaking to you, but it's been a busy old time in Telford. Now in Pandud, no, we are getting very, very perilously close to that business end of the season.
Very much so, Phil. Absolutely. And well, we're getting used to this again now. Zhao Xintong is the man that we need to be congratulating because he has won the Players' Championship, hasn't he, Phil? And done it in terrific fashion, really, beating John Higgins 10-7 in the final. Back-to-back ranking titles, very difficult in this sport. At any time in any era, we know that. But 5 out of 5 ranking titles won in finals. That is kind of amazing. If you think about the sheer pressure of those big occasions, that's the thing that really sticks out. I'll go back to you straight away, kind of for a word on that. And I keep saying events, dear boy, events, because things change so quickly. I mean, a few weeks ago, we'd have been saying, yeah, won that invitational runs, but yeah, in the pantheon of really, really good seasons for world champions, this is not going to be one of them. I think it is now. I heard Mark Williams say today, you want to win a tournament. He's won two, potentially more to come, and he's just playing some scintillating snooker. I always think his ears are burning because of the praise. When he plays like that, the praise is justified.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that five finals, 5 wins thing. He's the fourth person to do that after Steve Davis, Mark Williams, and Neil Robertson. So it's not unprecedented, but takes some doing. And they're not small ones, are they? I mean, the two he's won
No.
this year, the Grand Prix and the Players' Championship, but even before that, the UK and the World Championship and the German Masters as well. So
Yeah.
he wasn't winning the shootout or the old Riga Masters or anything. No disrespect to those tournaments, but these ones he's won more substantial. Um, and yeah, I mean, he just had flashes, didn't he? To be fair, in bits of this tournament, he wasn't amazing. I think he was a bit tired after Hong Kong. Um, but he's been showing his fights in the last couple of tournaments, which is what he was criticised for seemingly not having a lot of. Certainly, some people felt he was lacking in that department, but you couldn't really throw that criticism at him now. Coming from behind in a couple of the games, scrapping away with Higgins for almost all that final before he stepped on the gas at the end. It was a bit sort of O'Sullivan-esque when he won all those tournaments a couple of seasons ago, when he kept sort of not doing a lot really, just sort of hanging in there and then powering for the finishing line, which he did. And just those last 3 frames were absurd, weren't they? Just so good. Um, so yeah, like you say, it was going from at best a middling season as world champion, maybe middling to underwhelming. And now it's looking very good and could go on to be, one of the all-time great seasons as world champion.
Yeah, that's absolutely the right way to say it. And you're absolutely right about O'Sullivan. That's exactly the thought I had. It was particularly those finals, wasn't it, against Ding and Ali Carter. They were big
Mm.
titles, obviously, massive UK Championship and the Masters. Yeah, 7-7 to 10-7. Another match I thought I was one of those that I made the comment. It wasn't. It was that one where Ronnie beat Robertson at Christmas, having not won the tournament for ages. And he had that burst of frames. This is like 3 or 4 years ago now, I think. And I remember saying that it certainly took me, I can't really speak to anyone else, took me into kind of a different realm almost watching. And Zhao's a bit like that. He is kind of spellbinding, no question about it. And as you say, you described the final right, it was sort of tit for tat. My biggest concern, and I can't have been alone in this, was just that would Higgins have enough left in the tank? Because that kind of ruined the Masters final, really.
Mm.
Not that, as other people pointed out, wasn't Kyron was that spectacular, but he kind of didn't need to be because John didn't really quite kind of have enough. This was different. You could tell from the start, that he was up for it. Continuing credit to him, another big final. He would be annoyed he didn't win it, obviously, and gutted. But he is still getting to those big stages at the age of 50. And yeah, 4-4 after the first session, wasn't it? Breaks of 62, 61 and 81 from Zhao and 83 and 90 from Higgins. So decent scoring either way. It was then 6-6, 7-6 to Higgins. Then Zhao came back to 7-7. And as you say, then it was just bang, bang, bang. And Higgins was fulsome in praise, wasn't he? Breaks of 104, 126 and 92. Judd can kind of do that as well. And I guess at times someone like Robertson can, Ronnie clearly can a lot. Zhao's right in that company of someone that can do that, and that's a hell of a trick, frankly. Trick, not quite the right word, but you know what I mean. Um, and it was just brilliant. As you rightly say, we'll come to a match in a minute, particularly against a Slessor. Zhao is now knuckling down more. That Alan McManus thing, got to toughen up. Well, he's showing that with his results, isn't he? I mean, he did it against Selby in Hong Kong when he looked for all money like he'd lose that match. Now he's doing it here, and there's no limit to what you can do, is there, in a way? I mean, I was on my radio snooker service and sort of mentioned on there, very loath to sort of say anyone will dominate in this sport, purely because no one has for so long, including Judd. When he got the closest to it, you'd say he almost did a bit, Judd, really, for 2 or 3 seasons. But I mean, Zhao can do that if he fancies it, and at the moment he clearly does. You know, he's a redoubtable customer indeed. And a lot of people talk about that ball striking thing. Now, I'm not you know, obviously not a player, but so I don't, you know, infuse to the 100% levels that others would do because they know the intricacies of the game better than I would. But even though, in saying that, it is dreamlike to watch. I mean, just the striking is immaculate, really. I've been saying elsewhere, I actually really warmed to Zhao over the last month or so, and I think it was partly that Higgins defeat at the Masters that he took very well. I thought, but that was an outrageous defeat, really. He but maybe he used that because he's half been good in a month or so since. Because he should never have lost that match, and I think he'd had a big chance to win the Masters actually. But there we are. You've got to say well done. To both Higgins getting to the final, and then Zhao sort of, as I say, going from 7-7 to 10-7. And I'm going to go through the results in a moment. What do you make of sort of Higgins, Phil? I mean, he turned up this time. Were you also worried about that, thinking, has he got enough in the tank? He had the first semi-final, but he did an Ali Pali. I thought,
Yeah.
oh no, but thankfully we knew early on, didn't we? Our minds were settled. This is more like the Higgins we know.
Yeah, definitely. Because sort of at the Masters, I I think I let my sort of heart rule my head in a way. Not so much that I'm like desperate for anyone to win, but it felt like quite a romantic story that John would go and win that final, the way he'd come through and just doing it at his age. But really, Kyron seemed the more of the clear favourite, and then it played out like that. And then this time, yeah, I sort of expected Zhao to win quite handily, really. So I was pleasantly surprised that it was so competitive for so long. Um, and John said there was no problem with fatigue or anything. He said he felt great, played well, so that was good. Um, and yeah, he'd looked good all tournament. Really, he looked really good against Neil Robertson in the first round, although Robertson was poor. That second round Wakeley was a bit iffy, but to beat Judd Trump in the Masters and then this really mirror image of those two deciding frame wins. So it could have taken a lot out of him, but no, John was really impressive. I thought in the final, it did get a bit sticky, and that's why that sort of burst from Xintong was impressive because they both looked like they were struggling a little bit just before that. Um, and then then just out of nowhere, he wasn't struggling at all. He was quite the opposite. Um, yeah, was it? Higgins said this during the tournament actually, and Slesher said it to me before the tournament that Xintong looks like he's playing almost frustratingly slowly in terms of how he walks around the table. He
I
looks
saw
like he's
that.
walking in slow motion, but
Yeah,
then in 5 minutes, he's on 60. And he's like,
yeah,
"What? How is this happening?" I think Higgins was saying he's almost like getting annoyed with him because he's like, "Why? What? Hurry up!" But but then he is very quick. He's quite hypnotic in that sense. But yeah, I thought the fire was had an odd feeling about it. And this might just have been me, but even though it was level or Higgins was ahead at times, it felt like Higgins was almost like hanging on, whereas you were always expecting some sort of burst from Zhao. And then he did it in spectacular fashion at the end. But they were basically even all the way through. But I just had a feeling the whole time that John was sort of hanging on a bit, whereas Zhao was about to do something. But yeah, that might just have been a personal thing. But then that's sort of how it happened at the end. Uh, but yeah, Higgins was saying he's the man. That Zhao's now the man to beat at the World Championship. I wrote that piece. I don't know if anyone saw it beforehand about winning these
hmm
tournaments late on is not good news for your World Championship chances. Um, and it's very tempting to say these guys now are that should be the favourites of the world, but that's not how history has played out. But then, Zhao does feel, having said that, Zhao does feel like he's a whole different category to other things at times. So, you know, maybe he won't be my tip probably at the Crucible, but it'll be it might be quite hard to say that when it comes around.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, I was quite surprised because I mean, listen, I've always thought, and not just about the Tour Championship, I've never liked, say, if you want a guy to win at the Crucible, you don't want the winning just before. That's always been
Mm.
my gut feeling. I feel the same about golf majors and a lot of events probably in sport. If I went through them and thought about them, very rare that a golfer's ever won a tournament before the week of a major. It has been done. Nicholson's done it. Sandy Lard did it many years ago, as I recall, but rarely, really. And it's a bit like that, Selby obviously defied it. A few others have over the years, of course. But I didn't realize the Players' Championship was such a bad guide to Crucible. That's quite something. But I guess, there's just so many good players and they all play in these, obviously, generally. That one year in Hull, to Hull's bad luck, a lot of them missed out. But most of the time, they all play in the bigger ones. So, Phil, let's just go back, shall we, and think about the opening day to the tournament. John Higgins beat Neil Robertson 6-1. Big surprise to start with. Thought that would be close. Breaks of 70, 84 and 133 from Higgins. Good win for Mark Allen against Wu Yiza. Four half centuries for him to win 6-3. A few people saying at this stage that we've had a lot of one-sided matches
Mm.
recently. And I thought, actually, it's true in 26, isn't it? Germany was chock full of one-sided ones. The Masters had all those 6-2s. Of course, we got a Super Saturday coming. That changed that a bit. Mark Selby beat Jack Lasowski 6-3. Chris Wakelin 6, Zhao Gudong 2. Well, I did my Nostradamus line about that. I was very surprised that was so one-sided. Really good scoring, 2 centuries and 3 half centuries from Wakelin. No contest, Judd Trump 6, Zhao Yulong nil. Breaks of 61, 69, 63, 117 and 75 from Judd. Murphy, Sean, had a 147 attempt. Got to 120. I didn't see it. You probably did. The colours left. Very good win. Him beat Zhang Anda 6-1. Mark Williams 6, Barry Hawkins 2. Just not doing well this season, Hawkins. That's a continuation of that trend, really. And then Zhao Xintong 6, Elliot Slesser 5. I mean, I think everyone, or nearly everyone, would have seen those Slesser messages, one in particular on Twitter. He's just saying this is a nightmare game. He just keeps having these awful matches where he ends up losing them when he thinks he's going to win them. 5-2 up. I mean, breaks of 117, 62, 59 and 65 from Zhao. I mean, I guess he could be, peak Ronnie, peak Judd Trump, peak Joe Davis to anyone, Phil. If the other guy's making breaks like that, you can't do much. So that was Zhao again, coming from behind in impressive fashion.
Yeah, I mean, he had a couple of sort of games or two after. He certainly kept coming into his own later in games, which is a handy trait, really. But yeah, Slessor was well on top, and he looked like he was going to win. Then Zhao got that outrageous fluke blue, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen, up into the green pocket that came all the way down into the opposite corner. Um, and yeah, and then I think Slessor was unlucky, and Zhao then played really well. But I think probably his attitude becomes a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy to an extent. He thinks he's cursed, and then he's sort of a bit down, and things go against him. And obviously, he also made mistakes in those last four frames as well. But yeah, that will be a painful one because he's a player on the rise, Slessor, definitely. He's edging up the rankings. This is his first time in this tournament, but he keeps getting quite painful defeats in big matches. There was the quarter final of the English earlier this season where he's 4-0 up to Mark Allen and lost 5-4. The semi final in the Welsh a couple of seasons ago where he played Martin O'Donnell. No disrespect to Martin O'Donnell, but if you're playing someone who was ranked 70 odd in the world at the time in a semi final, that is a great chance that you should be taking, really, which he didn't. So it is progress, but when he's got these matches that should see him leap up a bit, they keep often being quite stinging losses, and that's another one. So I felt for him, but Zhao played really well at the end of that. Yeah, weirdly, I'm going to pick out that Wakelin Xiao Guodong one. That looked like that was going to be an epic late night one. I think it was 2-2, took forever, but then Wakelin played really well, powered for the line. So that was very good from him. Yeah, that opening afternoon, wasn't it, where Higgins beat Robertson heavily and Allen beat Wu Yiza. I think a lot of
Mm.
people would have tipped Robertson and Wu for those two wins. So not mammoth shocks by any means, but notable ones. And yeah, the other one, and Judd played really well against Joey Long, but Zhao seems to, so like he's such a good player, isn't he? But he just seems to have like some top players that he really struggles against. I know he beat Ronnie this season; he hadn't done for ages, um, or ever. So that was a step in that direction. But he really struggles against Judd Trump, and obviously most people struggle against Judd Trump, but he just can't perform against him. So he does seem to have a bit of an issue against the very best players, and that's something he needs to get over if he's going to take that next step in the game, which people have been expecting him from him for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely well summed up. Quarterfinals then, Phil. John Higgins beat Chris Wakelin 6-3. Judd Trump 6, Mark Williams 3. That was pure quality. I mean, lovely little banter from Williams throwing the towel on. Someone just heckled about him that in Wales today. Don't chuck the towel in. Anyway, yeah, that was Williams opened with a 1-4-1. Played well. Can't believe how well he played to lose by 3 frames. But anyway, Trump's excellence there was the story. Breaks of 52, 75, 70, and 1-2-3 from him. Sean Murphy said Zhao was almost unplayable when he beat him 6-3. Breaks of 67, 66, 1-4-2, 95, and 1-1-8 from Zhao. And then, well, Mark Allen 6, Mark Selby 2 was a curious one. Allen was 5-0 up, wasn't he? Looking at the scores here. Really good from him. Great scoring. 130, one of the breaks in there. And Selby had a couple of really good breaks to pull two back, but Alan Silva victory in a frame that went on forever, nearly an hour actually, and got the job done. And then Phil, Super Saturday, reminiscent of the Masters. We couldn't have been more fortunate. People watching on television and those that were there had golden tickets because it was John Higgins 6, Judd Trump 5. Reminiscent of the Masters scoring actually the other way. Higgins 3-0 up. Trump kept plugging his way back. Higgins missed an extraordinary pink at 5-4 up, didn't he? I mean, again, we haven't missed many from the armchair, have we? But he seemed to whack it hard to me. I've only seen it once, but I think, goodness, he hit that hard. But anyway, credit to him because Trump leveled, but then Higgins himself had to come from behind in the decider. Trump had a really awkward red, but one he was furious to miss. He was bridging over another red, banging the table, didn't he, Judd, and banged the cue. I think Dave Hendon in commentary was saying you don't see that very often, and you don't. It was quite telling for how he felt about that. I think he probably knew John would clear up, frankly, and he did. Zhao Xintong beat Mark Allen 6-5. Allen was 3-1 and 4-2 up there. That was where Zhao's steal came in because I was watching that night. Allen played well, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, Zhao got to 4-4 with breaks of 103 and 58. Then a really good break of 90. And the commentary was really like, this is typically cool Mark Allen going 5-4 up in that sort of smooth way of his that he can do when he's sort of on the ball. But Zhao got the job done. He won with helper breaks of 53 and 56, 165. And yeah, you have to be very careful in sport now, Phil, when you're questioning Super Saturdays and Super Sundays. But that deserved the billing. It was a hell of a day.
Oh yeah, the double decider semi-final day, absolutely superb. Yeah, the first one was funny really because Judd had been really good in his first one and then absolutely sensational in the quarters against Williams. Well, I don't think we mentioned Williams finished with a 97% pot success rate.
Oh,
Lost
wow.
6-3. It's
Yeah.
not going to happen again. Unbelievable. He was so good. And then, but I suppose that's been the story of most people's seasons. Everyone has shown it in flashes, but not enough. And Judd was well off that. He wasn't terrible by any means. He got to a decider against Higgins, but he was not playing like he did in the first two games. But he did scrap back all the way to that decider and then had the chance. And yeah, like you say, it's not that you don't see it often. I can't think of when I've seen it before. I mean, there will have been examples, but they don't spring to mind. Him thumping the table and then going back to his chair and then whacking the cue on the floor again. It's so unlike him. Um, but I guess it's this deciding frame thing. That I
Yeah.
find that one of the
It's
more
mad.
baffling things that have ever come up. If anyone on the tour had played 8 deciders this in a season and lost them all, that would be weird. That would feel like an odd thing. But for the world number one to do it
Yeah.
is insane. Like that's exactly the
What?
kind
Let
of
me
thing
tell
you
you.
think
What do you
world number
think?
one
What do you
should do.
think the maddest thing is? Right? Because I always couldn't believe when Ronnie lost all those finals that season. I couldn't get my head around that.
Mm.
What do you think is madder? Sorry to interrupt. Ronnie losing all those finals or this? They're both not unthinkable because they're happening, but they're so hard to get your head around. Both those things in modern snooker for me.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose if you were thinking about pure odds, O'Sullivan's would be madder because
Yeah,
he'd be shorter odds for a match than Trump would be for one frame in a
that's
decider.
true. That's true.
So if you're thinking about it mathematically, it would be that. But I'm finding this very confusing because,
Yeah.
like I say, that winning tight matches is something you'd expect from someone who's right at the top of the rankings because that's how you get there. And I do wonder if that show of frustration and anger is part of this thing about deciders getting in his head because that was another chance to get over the line and he hasn't taken it. Superb clearance from Higgins, especially after that missed pink,
Yeah.
um, which which was mental. I mean, there's that great shot in the studio with Katie Shanahan
Oh
and
yeah.
Matthew Stevens and Hendry, and they just can't believe it.
Yeah.
Higgins actually said afterwards that, and this is an interesting point on how experience is good but can be bad. You've got so many thoughts of all the years going through your head, and he said it was a Mark Williams shot that he had in his head at the time, where he just sort of potted the pink, dollied in the pink, not thinking about position, and then allowed his opponent to play on for snookers. So he thought, right, I don't want to do that. I'll play position. And then he was just thinking about the position way more than the pot, and then messed it up. But even then, it was so easy for someone of his standards that it was very shocking. But yeah, to regroup and produce a classic Higgins clearance was sensational. And yeah, and then the other game, it was down to that misread was the talking point. Not misread, the turn down red in the decider from
Oh
Allen,
God. Yeah.
who got himself a chance. Uh, Not a straightforward chance, clearly, because people aren't going to turn down ones that are gimmies. But the consensus was, I think everyone watching thought he was going to have a go at it because it's really hard to play safe against Zhao for one. Like, you can't leave him anything. And it's the classic, it's the cliche, isn't it? All you want in his side is a chance. He got himself a chance through some quite good safety, then chose not to have a go at it. So it's easy to say after he's lost, but that did seem like one he would regret.
No, I think it wasn't that hard to say even at the time. I'm glad you remembered that because I wrote a column just over a month ago saying I thought, and this is when you write a column you've got to take a line obviously, but the one I went with was that I thought Kyron Wilson, and I did think it during the Masters. It didn't just suddenly come to me from a bolt from the blue. A lot of Kyron's matches he was playing the bold shot time and time again. That's ultimately one of the things that won him the title that week. I felt. Here was a good example because if you remember soon after, Dreamlike Red from Zhao, if you remember from distance, where he
Yeah.
just sort of left that was absolutely incredible bit of cueing. But the black he had a few shots later was horrible. I mean, he was never going to turn it down, but I guess. But it just showed, you play those brave shots. I was surprised by Alan
Mm.
not taking that. I think you had to. That wasn't hindsight. That wasn't because he then lost. That wasn't. I've forgotten who was on commentary now. Was it Hendry? Feels like a Hendry
McManus
type.
was on,
Oh, McManus. That's it.
and
Right.
he was shocked. He was shocked that he didn't take it on.
That's right. It was McManus. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, exactly. You're right. It was a funny one, really.
There was
But
a few
listen,
times with Zhao in that match and the final, and I think it was Alan, had said like, "Oh, this is tricky. Is he going to take it on?" I was just thinking, obviously, he is. I've not seen him turn down a shot all tournament or career barely. Like, he's exactly what you're talking about bravery, and he's so good
yeah,
at it. It comes off most of the time. But whenever you think, "Oh, some people wouldn't take this on," he absolutely will.
that's right. Now, I'm not going to pretend I saw an awful lot of this, mainly because of the Winter Olympics, but did you see Alan himself put on absolutely
Yeah,
magnificent red during the
superb.
break? That was a hot shot. I think now that was Hendry off the back of that saying, "What a shot." I mean, it was just, he banged it in a dreamlike effort. I thought he's got to get back on tour, McManus, playing shots like that.
He
Anyway,
barely even got down to play it, did he? He was basically
no,
stood up, rifled it in.
it was magic, Peter Keuring. So there we were left with the final fill, which, as we said, was won by Zhao Xintong, who beat John Higgins 10-7. Congratulations to Zhao and to everyone that put on the tournament. We're going to talk Channel 5. We must have done about 20-25 minutes. I think we'll give a name check, shall we, first, and say you are listening here to the Talking Snooker podcast with Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf. Zhao Xintong is the winner of the Players' Championship, beating John Higgins 10-7 in the final. it was the height of bad manners for me, Phil, to take the first dibs on Channel 5, because of course you were part of the team. We want to hear all about that. You were, you know, quite a big part of it, and you will obviously have your own views on the on the coverage as well. And it sounds a bit silly because I only thought about it a couple of hours ago. I've also not been to Telford, so also I want to hear about the venue. So loads to say from you, sir.
Yeah, oh well, we'll start with Telford, which I was very impressed with. I'd heard it was a good venue. I'd never been to Telford. I can't pretend I saw much of Telford. It's quite near the train station, so I just went to the hotel and the venue. The venue was
Hmm.
was good. Um, Modern, proper arena venue, not a leisure centre. Seemed to have good facilities and everything. The crowds are great, good queue zone. Yeah, I was really impressed in the afternoon crowds. The queue sort of snaking around throughout quite a cavernous building.
Hmm.
Players, I've never seen as big a player lounge. So they were
Right.
pleased with that. Practice facilities look good. So yeah, all in all, the venue I was really impressed with. And yeah, it was really fun being involved with Channel 5. I was glad to get that opportunity. Wasn't really sure entirely what I was, how much I was going to be involved really, but I think I did those few chats with Abby Davies, which were good, and a little piece on sort of the rise of Chinese snooker. So hopefully you caught those on the coverage. But yeah, I mean it's quite a familiar team in general. Most of the guys that were on ITV, um, but with the additions of John Higgins for less than I think they'd hoped him to be there, because
Oh yeah, of
getting
course.
to the final, he wasn't used in commentary or punditry quite as much as I think they were planning to. But the bits I did hear, he was good on the commentary. And Matthew Stevens joined in. I think both of them said they were quite nervous doing those gigs for the first time. And it just shows, I mean, there's nothing they don't know about the game, but
Yeah.
standing in front of a camera or behind a microphone for the first time, um, it'll jangle the nerves, but I think they were both good. And Katie Shanahan was presenting for the first time. I think she did a good job. Yeah, and it's just super friendly. It's a really nice team to be involved with, so that was great. And I think it seemed to be received very well. I
Hmm.
thought the extra build up, the half an hour before, felt like it was going to be a lot. Like that's a lot to fill, but I think they came up with loads of interesting stuff.
Yeah.
But things like there was a good interview with Abby with a head table fitter, stuff we don't
Hmm.
get to hear very often. There was a really nice piece about John Virgo at the start that Dave did.
Yes.
And it certainly didn't feel stodgy or anything. I think there's some great ideas that were filled there. Ref cam probably a bit divisive. Not sure how long that will stay. Maybe we'll see. There were bits that were quite. I liked the shot of ref cam, but the ref had to be still. Um, because as soon as he moved, it was all a bit sort of people saying they were feeling seasick because it didn't quite work when the ref was on the move. But so they might, I don't know, they try. It's worth a try. They may well um tweak that and give it a different go. We'll see. But yeah, I think it was a big success the first one. The only thing I will tick them off for one thing. Um, I don't know who this affected, but it definitely affected some people. But adverts popping up during the final few frames of the final and then during the interviews. I was back home then, and it certainly happened to me, and that was quite annoying. So that was clearly some error somewhere. I've not spoken to anyone to find out why that happened. But it didn't happen to everyone because there wasn't widespread outrage. So I don't know if it was an area thing or a sort of TV provider thing, but that needs to be fixed because that can't be happening at the end of finals. That's not great.
Yes, and I noticed, I said to you before we came on the air that some of the more reliable customers on social media were reporting that to me, and I saw generally, I thought, well, I can tell that did happen because people that I know and know to be, top snooker people and very reliable snooker people were saying that, and I think some people it came on during the frame, some people the adverts came on during this the actual sort of ceremony as well. I think I heard so. Yeah, I mean, as I say, there are weeks when I would have seen more snooker. So what I would say is the feedback I've heard from people has been generally very, very positive. I have to say, I thought Matthew was more nervous than John from the bits I saw. That's kind of what I would say about that. And that's not criticism; it's a nerve-wracking thing to do. I noticed John himself said he preferred the commentary, so that was interesting. But he might be suited more to that actually. But time will tell in terms of we'll have to see a lot more of it. some fans mentioned the picture quality, and I have to say, when I saw a few close-ups over the weekend, I knew what they meant. There was something about it. I'm a total, well, 100% novice when it comes to why and how these pictures would be different, but there was something, there was a real clarity about it. I also like the dimensions as well. I know that's something that they get wrong sometimes, including at the Masters. And I've got to say, Phil, the prominence is so big. And I know you've got them as well. I asked you to kindly leave them for me because I'm a nerd, frankly, and I wanted something to properly say. WST did sort of send out some viewing figures news, and a lot of it is interesting. Definitely, 2.3 million reach over the first 2 days. It took 5 days to reach that figure on ITV4 last season. I have to be honest, I don't want to be constantly hearing comparisons to ITV, by the way. And I saw a lot of fans, I saw some fans say, oh, it's much better than ITV coverage. And I thought, well, no, it wasn't really. ITV coverage was also very, very good. It was different. And there was a lot to be, listen, for a first go, it's massively positive. But I think a lot of this talk, I was loads better than ITV. Well, ITV that's been praised for the last 12, 13 years has been brilliant. I'm not sure about that. Anyway, that was just a personal thing. Figures for Wednesday afternoon, last Wednesday, averaged 352,000 in the afternoon. Brilliant. There was a 627,000 peak as well, which was really, really good. Thursday's peak of 758,000 was higher than any peak audience. That would have been the night time, I'm sure, that the NFL received on Channel 5 last season. And just to put that in context, the Super Bowl peaked at 625,000. So that really is interesting. I couldn't, for the life of me today, tried on various forums and places, Broadcast Magazine. There was certainly an average of over 500,000. I'm going to give an educated guess. The peak was around 600,000 last night. We may hear it's more in time. That's my educated guess. And frankly, it was a big night of live events. The BAFTA was on BBC One, the Winter Olympics closing ceremony on BBC Two, big drama actually on ITV. So that's pretty good. And it felt like that a little bit. It felt like it was a bit more visible than ITV. And now I am comparing to ITV, but only in terms of visibility, I'd like to say, rather than any kind of quality. But yeah. So that's a sort of thing I'd say. Yeah, RefCam. I think by instinct when I first heard about RefCam, I think I thought it's not a very big playing area, and that came in my mind again on Sunday. One of those goals that I think Eze scored for Arsenal. The RefCam was magnificent. I mean, you could see him take the ball and curl it, and I thought, oh wow. But it's going to come into its own a bit more in football. When all the angles are generally covered on snooker anyway by the cameras, I'm not quite sure. But it may come up with a zinger one day. It may come up with an unbelievable zinger if they carry on and we'll be like, oh, that's what it's there for. But yeah, listen, innovation's great, isn't it? Try new things. And, I mean, a couple of journalist friends of mine were saying, despite the talk that it was all sort of different, most of the faces and voices were familiar, really, weren't they? I think it's fair to say. But listen, that they're top characters, aren't they? Hendry's always absolutely compelling. We know that. McManus is just, obviously a top voice on television. And yeah, just generally, Joe Perry, I'm glad to see involved, by the way. I know she's doing stuff at BBC as well this week. So yeah, generally really good. I said the advert thing was an issue, but that sounds more like a technical issue than anything. The other thing I can't bear is the 5 streaming service. I've got to be honest, but again, that's not their problem. You can't pause on it. I mean, I was
hoping for an ITVX improvement, and it was similar, really. Wasn't it?
I'm as old as the hills, but even I want to rewind things these days. That's why the BBC with the iPlayer and Discovery Plus is miles better because you could there are people that are far more versed in telly than me, which isn't that hard. That do say there are very good reasons for that. There are very good commercial, to use that word, reasons why it's difficult for them to do that on those players because adverts are very important. But anyway, Phil, have you got any more to say about it? I mean, I'm glad to hear about Telford, by the way. I used to go there many years ago with football. I stayed a couple of times in Wellington, if I remember right. It was a very nice little place nearby, not quite, again, sort of near sort of Shrewsbury. It's all near Shrewsbury, but I used to stay in Wellington. That's very nice. Yeah, Telford's sort of a new town, isn't it? Yeah. And yes, I'd heard that from others actually. The classic thing is I'd heard nothing disparaging, and that's kind of what if you don't hear anything negative, someone's doing something right. And the crowds always look great. I have to say, it's a good catchment area, isn't it? I mean, it's a good lot of it's near the Midlands, it's near the North, it's all well connected, I'm sure. It's train and car, so yeah. And any news on whether I don't know whether it's a long-term deal in Telford or whether it's short. I'm not sure. It seems they've been there a few years now, but maybe we should find out. But
Yeah,
it
I
seems to go down well.
yeah, I don't know I don't know how long it's set for there, but that was the third year, and I
Yeah,
think we're already starting to see the
yeah,
benefits that we talk all the time about finding a home. Yeah, I got the train there via Birmingham, and it's sort of 20, 25 minutes on the train from Birmingham. So yeah, it's very well connected. Um, and yeah, I think it looked. I didn't go and sit in the arena, but it looked, and I heard that it was comfy seats with good leg room. So all the things you want to hear from an arena. Yeah, no, it was all positive stuff really, and yeah, we'll see. So the Channel 5 have got the Tour Championship coming up very soon, and then the British Open next season. So yeah, like you said, it's for first go. It was a lot of the same people behind the scenes and some of the people on in front of the camera, but enough more change than we're accustomed to at snooker tournaments. You know, we're getting very
yeah.
used to the same over and over again. So I definitely think it went down very well, and people were pleased with how it went for their first crack at it.
Of course, and we'll see the Tour Championship on Channel 5, and I'm sure some of the lessons they will learn they'll iron out and get even better. And of course, the British Open later in the year as well. That tournament that I loved attending early this season at Cheltenham, and so that's all to look forward to. And Phil, should we move on to the Welsh Open now?
Mm.
And we guess say first of all, very moving tribute to John Virgo on BBC Wales. I know you tweeted about it, and we were both saying we haven't been able to find it yet on the iPlayer again. Might search again a little bit later tonight. Um, I mean, listen, they're both in their own way wonderful individual people, but what a pair, Dennis Taylor and John Virgo. It was very moving. It was beautifully put together.
Yeah.
I mean, very affecting, the picture of the microphone, wasn't it? And I know it sounds silly because I see the odd clip of Big Break, but I don't really watch old Big Breaks. Uh, the amount of ludicrous costumes John was wearing,
Yeah.
sort of Superman and Widow Twanky and all these ridiculous things. It was just, it went on for over 10 years. And of course, I remember it when I saw it, I thought because I used to watch it, but it's just like, yeah. And it's that thing, which I said when we did our tribute episode last time. One of the comforts I'm taking from what is ultimately terrible, sad news is that John had a wonderful life. Dennis said it. They both. He said these two working class lads potting balls in with some sticks, and we'd gone around the world, or however he put it, and all our mates. And he said John had a wonderful life. We got some news about an event, haven't we? Which I'm sure
Mm.
people will know, but we like to confirm it for those that haven't heard. Coming up at Sheffield Cathedral in April, but that was lovely from the BBC, and the old good night JV. And by the way, should have said the Dave Hendon tribute. That was that line, that there's always a gap, and I think you forgotten the exact word, but there is now. There is a gap. There's a huge gap. It's and I know there's going to be. By the way, if you're tuned to the BBC throughout the week, particularly, I know that's relevant if you're in the UK. You may be able to catch it elsewhere. People might put videos up. There are going to be lots of different tributes, as I understand, from different members of the team. I know Parrott's part of the team. Then maybe he'll
Yeah.
do one. Not sure. Ken Doherty, all great mates with John. So I'm sure they'll all have their own. And that's a nice thing, actually. It's lovely that, in a way, that it's this event that they have the chance to do that. But yeah, that was a lovely package. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and I knew they were coming up, and then I didn't know who was doing it or how it would be. And I don't know with these things. I was sort of welling up as soon as they sort of cut to Dennis there.
Yeah,
It's so emotional. Um, and when it is, he said right at the start of it that he's known John for 50 years.
yeah,
And that's so powerful because I know a lot of us will be thinking the same, how we've been hit by it. And, I met John. I know John a tiny little bit, but not even the same stratosphere as how well people like Dennis Taylor knew him. And then
yeah.
you obviously start feeling for them. So, yeah, I think on those things, I'm just so impressed that they get through it without cracking up. Dennis did a great job, and whoever put that all together did a great job. I've not seen the other ones yet, if they've even been out yet, but yeah, keep an eye on the BBC coverage. Yeah, a lot of people asked for links or clips or anything. I did look back through iPlayer, I couldn't find it on there, but I'd be very surprised if BBC Wales don't post it somewhere because
Yeah.
a lot of people want to see it. So yeah, look forward to trying to get through a few more of those tributes because that was a great start.
It really was. And important to say, of course, John was part of the BBC Wales team wasn't just a massive part of snooker. He was a big part of
Mm.
coverage of this tournament. And I know a lot of, I mean, people around the UK, we can all watch it thanks to the BBC digital services, but those in Wales obviously feel a particular connection to it. They watch it on television in Wales. And a lot of, my Welsh friends and people that love the game say they'll miss him from this particular week of coverage. He was so big on this. So, Phil, we had a hell of a result, didn't we, already on this day one? Mark Selby beaten by Jiang Jun. No one saw that coming. I don't think that was a hell of a win for the 20-year-old. I noticed you and others are saying that Mark's running on empty a little bit, so it might be part of that. And that's kind of might be what it is. I saw Michael Holt had a big chance to take the match against Mark Williams into a decider. I think he's a pinky miss, but Mark Williams got the job done 4-2. We'll go to the video printer in a moment, but yeah, the big line has got to be also another one. Mikhail Shabarzik, who I noticed has lost 4-1 to Robertson. He looked really good early on, actually. People were
Yeah.
saying, God, he's settled into his, I think someone said terrestrial TV debut I saw to. I thought, God, that's a hell of a line. You don't hear that very often. Love that. But yeah, no, but yeah, Selby, that's, yeah, you can't win them all. But yeah, terrific win for, I looked at Jiang John. Now, I didn't remember he got so far in the Scottish Open. He had a very good run
Mm.
there to the last eight, but yeah, 3-1 down as well. And that's like, he's Selby, Selby.
Yeah, yeah, and Selby, I think in those when Selby was 2-1 up, and he'd made breaks of 123 and 137, so he looked to be playing all right at that point. Um, but yeah, he it was in that game against Mark Allen. After that, he's in Telford. He said he was felt knackered and his concentration was really struggling, which I thought was odd. I know he's played a lot of snooker and he's done really
Mm.
well, but I think he'd had 2 days off before. That was weird with the scheduling because he played on the first day and then had 2 days off before playing on the Friday. So I was a bit surprised that's when it hit him. But these things come out of nowhere, really. And yeah, I mean, it's a real shame the defending champion losing right at the start, but it's probably not the worst thing for him. I actually start to think like you don't want to be in these tournaments at the end if you really want to have a go at the Worlds. But he will obviously go to the World Open. He will play at the Tour Championship. But missing most of this one might not be the end of the world. But yeah, Zhang Jun, sometimes he looks absolutely dynamite. He's only 20. He's had some great wins. He's really raw. He had that mad game with Stan Moody in qualifying the other week,
Oh, right,
which
yeah.
had a crazy ending. And Stan managed to get over the line on the final, black in the decider. Um, if that footage is anywhere and you're not seeing it, have a look because the last sort of frame and a half of that is insane. Great viewing. But yeah, no, he's a great talent, Zhang. So interested to see how he gets on. Yeah, watched the little bits around today. We had Jack Jones, Liam Highfield on this morning, which looked like it was going to take forever. There was 1-1 and they played half an hour of a frame before re-racking and it looked like it was just going to go on all day. But then Jack Jones found some form
Hmm.
and powered towards the line. A surprise result for me was Joe O'Connor 4, Aaron Hill nil, just because
Oh, yeah.
not that Joe O'Connor can't beat Aaron Hill. Either result, whoever won that wouldn't have been a surprise. But um, Hill's probably had in my head, he's had a better season than Joe. So to be whitewashed is a bit of a surprise. And yeah, if we go to the Vidi printer, it looks like there could be another shock about to happen if it's not already happened. I think it may already have happened. David Grace about to beat Mark Allen, which is a huge win for friend of the podcast.
Friend of the podcast going back a few years. You're absolutely right. I noticed he was 3-2 up. Yeah, he's crossed the line with this break in the next frame, hasn't he? I think he's going to get a 4-2 win. Yes, literally as I speak, it's turned from 3-2 to 4-2. So yeah, that is a smashing win for David, as you say. And well, that is a Mark Allen who's I think what you say a little bit about the Selby, and maybe I mean they all want to win, obviously, but it's a bit like some football team if they're going for a lot of prizes. Might not be the right analogy, but I think if you're going to go out of a cup, go out of a cup early, sort of thing,
Mm.
rather than get to the quarter semi and not win it. You know, sometimes it can work out a bit like that. But anyway, they can't win them all these guys. But yeah, that's a really interesting result. Couple more that have come through. Ruiza beat Ben Mertens 4-0. Martin O'Donnell beat Tom Ford 4-2. Close one, Maguire and Walden, two redoubtable old
Mm.
customers there. Maguire winning at 4-3. Is there any more left in the table? Carter and McGill.
Yeah, that could go
Ni-
late.
Neither of them friends of the podcast. Just Despite our efforts now, we haven't had too many. 2-2. Yeah, that could go a late one. It's already about 11 p.m. here in the UK. So yeah, loads to come. Phil, we don't want to do much more than now. So I know I wanted to mention, I said to you, contrasting views on this South Wales, North Wales thing. Jackson Page says, I like the place and the venue. No one dislikes Llandudno. I went there myself last spring. If you don't like that place, you find places hard to love anywhere because it's a lovely, delightful town. But Jackson says, I feel like it should be in South Wales. I don't think this is where the tournament should be staged. There is no player from North Wales. Every pro on tour is from South Wales. So it doesn't really feel like a home event for us, in all honesty. Jack Jones was asked about those comments and said, I agree with Jackson. Venue Cymru is a lovely place. The crowds are amazing, but it doesn't feel like the Welsh Open. It's like going to any other tournament, really. Mark Williams says, I don't agree with that. The venue and the crowd we get here is as good as anywhere. I've always been on the side of those that say it would be best in South Wales, I have to say. But I'm a bit greedy because I want Llandudno to host another tournament. So it's easy for me to sit here and pontificate on this and that. Maybe harder to sort out. I love when Llandudno had one of the later ones. I get why they moved it because there's bigger places they had the tour, didn't it? Of course, it's gone to Manchester now, much bigger arena, Hull first, then Manchester. Yeah, and I liked it then because it was a bit later in the year, so slightly better weather in Llandudno. But anyway, yeah, interesting views on that. I don't know if you've got much more to add. I mean, Mark Williams probably had the most clout of all, and he's saying no, stay put. So
Yeah. Well, I think if the crowds were no good there, then they would move. But the crowds look pretty good for like first thing on a Monday morning. There was a lot of people in, so they do all right. I mean, I get the complaints. Um, all those guys live in quite a small radius, I guess, of each other down in South Wales, and they all have to drive. It's like a four plus hour drive up to London now. Um, so much so that I don't think they bring a lot of friends and family up there. When if it was in South Wales, they would have a lot there. So I understand the complaints, but yeah, that it looks a great spot and a great venue. And yeah, I mean, if there was space for tournament there and in South Wales, then ideal. But yeah, Wales do clearly have a good connection with London now because they've had, as you say, more than one tournament there, and they always seem to do well. So we'll see. Yeah, I mean, South Wales is such a traditional snooker hotbed. It would look nice to have something there. But I tell you what else would be nice is to have a Welsh winner because they were
yeah,
speaking about this on the coverage.
99, isn't it?
Yeah, Mark Williams in 1999 was the last Welsh winner. And it was a good day for them actually because Williams won and Jack Jones and Dylan Emery all won today. I was having a look at Williams' run in '99. So that was when he beat Stephen Hendry 9-8 in the final. And
Wow.
what a run this is. This ages it, but also is an incredible run. Williams beat Neil Foulds, Chris Small, Alan McManus, Steve Davis, and Ronnie O'Sullivan before beating Stephen Hendry in the final. That's some effort.
Multiple friends of the podcast there, by the way. That is some effort. Do you know what? I didn't realise it was that long until Rachel Casey came on here. However long that was ago, maybe 2 or 3 winters ago, when she came on and might have been ahead of that actually, ahead of that tournament. It feels like we're talking about it quite a lot. And she said, "Oh no, it's that long." I thought, God, I didn't realize it'd been quite that long. Yeah, uh, yeah. I guess because this is no real excuse for not remembering, but I guess it's so connected with Welsh voices that event. You're constantly,
Mm.
but you think, oh, of course, they're actually on the table. They're not really producing, because of course we're hearing from Dominic Dale, aren't we? This and Lee Walker and various other people voices. But yeah, you're right. That's a hell of a wait. It would be great to see it. Obviously, we've seen it with Mark Hanlon in Northern Ireland. What's the Scottish situation been like? Have we had a Scottish winner of that? Oh, God knows. That's a hot potato for you. I see by your face. Should have touched you a colder potato, a colder potato than that. But you're right. That's crazy. That's a crazy long time ago. And listen, should we move on rather than you can look that up if you want, but we'll move on to
I've
another
looked it
news
up
line.
now. Interestingly, and it's had some different. Obviously, it's not continually been the Scottish Open like the
Yeah.
Welsh has been forever. But the last Scottish winner of the lineage of the Scottish Open was also in 1999 was Stephen Hendry. So there's a weird little
Wow.
symmetry there.
Yeah. That has been. Was it the Scottish Masters? Maybe it's been different things. I think, or it might be
That
a
was the
different.
Scottish Open then, but it has changed
Oh,
since. Because
im-
then Higgins got to the final in 21, but that was the one in Wales.
Oh
That
yeah.
was it.
Well, no, it's funny you say that one in Wales, because that's yeah, you're absolutely right to talk about the crowds in Llandudno. While say what I say, that's never been the only time there wasn't good crowds was that one, but you couldn't really blame them because that wasn't even the Welsh Open. It was done at late notice and it was
Yeah.
Christmas, so all those reasons. Because that was where the Ronnie documentary. The crowds were no good at that. I think Higgins played Ronnie, and that was a good crowd, but otherwise it was really quiet that week. But most of the time, you're right. And I remember the first year, it's probably going, time goes so quickly. You probably think it's about 5 years ago. It's probably more like 10 now. But whenever they first had Llandudno, the very first morning of the tournament, be 7 or 8 years, I think, it was good from the word go. I remember thinking that's always a sign, isn't it? Never mind your Sunday night with the guy's got the
Mm.
trophy. If Monday morning or Monday lunchtime the place is full, this is the proper place that either gets snooker or there's doing something right there. It's in the right catchment area or what have you. Phil, we have news that Ronnie O'Sullivan will play in the World Seniors Championship, which I have to be honest with you, I I say I have conflicting views. I don't really think that's what I would see as kind of the spirit of the event in many ways. That's the way I would look at it. People will have different views, and there's nothing personal about this whatsoever. I think it's a brilliantly staged event. Those that have brought the seniors tour on have done brilliantly. But when you've got an unbelievable player like Ronnie O'Sullivan, who could easily win the World Championship, so could Mark Williams, if they're in it, I don't know. That's not what I would think. And the one I would liken it to is golf. That's not what I would think would be the spirit of it. Now, I know probably those that run it and those that are involved will say, well, we can have long retired world champions, and the problem is sort of a lot of those is they're drifting off because they're giving up or they're getting old and what have you. Or guys lower down the tour, they don't sell enough tickets and we're not making enough money. That's what they would say, I think. They might not say it as basically as that. But we saw a lot of the word commercial today, and I get that. But I mean, I'm not particularly thinking that's what the spirit is of that. But I thought rather than pontificate forever at length, perish the thought, Phil, I thought we'd throw it over to our audience when we've had a word from you. So let us know what you think on that one. Tweet us at Talking Snooker or email at talkingsnooker at yahoo.com. But listen, tickets will sell like hotcakes now for the
Mm.
Crucible, for the seniors. They'll be cheaper for one thing. I'm not trying to be funny. And you'll see Ronnie and Jimmy and Mark Williams. But I'm a bit over the top saying it'll just feel like another World Championship after it. It won't be that. There's lots of players that are lesser seen and what have you. But we are going to see more than a sprinkling now. I think it's fair to say of players that could also win the World Championship. And occasionally you'll get that in the golf seniors. You'll get guys that can win the majors, but not really. And I guess it's unlucky in the sense, if you want to call it unlucky, that we're in an era where 50 odd year olds are still doing brilliantly. Other times in snooker, that wouldn't be the case. So it would be neater. You'd get guys that were maybe stopping being good at 43, like a Hendry retiring first time, or 42 or 40, that kind of thing. And then they go in the seniors. It's more natural. It's an awkward period for the seniors in that sense, although they may not think it's awkward. They may think it's brilliant. We've got Ronnie involved, but complex thoughts from me. I think there's been a lot of confused people on Twitter saying, why is Ronnie in this? The rules have changed to allow Ronnie to enter. Nothing untoward about it, or no one's putting a fast one. It's perfectly allowed. But from what I would see as what I thought was the kind of whole spirit of the seniors when it began, I'm not so sure. Over to you.
Yeah, and I think both those thoughts are right. That you said, undoubtedly it'd be a sort of bigger, more successful, more popular tournament. Now, Ronnie's in it, so all those commercial arguments will make perfect sense. But I'm with you. It doesn't really feel what you imagine a seniors or and World Championship an event is for. Um, it's to give retiring or retired players the chance to play on competitively in a different environment where they've all got about the same chance that they did previously. But yeah, and it's not just Ronnie. Obviously, it's sort of thrown into stark focus because it's Ronnie O'Sullivan. But same point would stand for Mark Williams
And
as it
Stuart
did for
Bingham, to some
yeah,
extent.
yeah, yeah. And the other people in and Ali Carter in there as well. I think
Yeah.
similar. The people who it's more good for the change. is like Rob Milkins is in there. That's exactly the sort of for someone who, he might well fall off tour this season, or he might have to back to Q school. That's who should be playing there. The guys who just retired, like Perry and Hamilton, Dale, exactly, and then the older guys. Um, so yeah, so just the feel, just the feel of it and what people want it to be. But I suppose that's sort of the cold, hard reality. Where there's so often in life now, it's what you feel it should be, or it's the cold, hard reality of commercialization, and that's what it is there. So yeah, but the plus sides are, I think tickets start at like 17 quid, 18 quid or something. So I'm sure people in Sheffield who get to go and see some really genuinely star names um, for very little money uh, will be delighted, and the tournament will do well. But we'll see. It's I think the point is really in any of these tournaments when you're making it big and competitive, they have to be like it has to be. If Ronnie turns up and isn't playing properly because he's not that bothered, then that is a complete waste of time. Like everyone in there has to be going all out to win. And then you would think, well, if that's the case, then O'Sullivan or Williams is definitely going to win. So if you sort of get to sort of a half messing about Ronnie, then that's not really good for anyone, I would say. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm with you. It's just not what I feel a World Seniors Championship should be. But I'm not the one trying to make a living out of it, so I'd probably feel differently if I was.
Well, O'Sullivan or Williams or Bingham or Carter will win it, won't they? Or we'll all
Yes,
be
yeah, I think
asking
so. Yeah.
questions. And I've genuinely only, I'm not going to prove it by showing you my diary, but I honestly will tell you it's in my head. I'll be honest with you, it only comes to me now. Ken Doherty's got this thing, hasn't he, where he's won the World Championship, the amateurs, that he's never won this. He lost that final to Jimmy that he should probably not have lost from Mars
Yeah.
Clare. He's got no chance of winning it now.
Mm.
He's got absolutely no chance. There's more chance of seeing Halley's Comet in Hackney tonight than Ken Doherty winning that now, is there? Unless they don't turn up and play properly, as you just said. But we'll presume they should for the sanctity of the event. I'm sure they will. That wouldn't be my concern. I suspect Bonnie and that will turn up and play perfectly properly. Williams has won it before many years ago.
Mm.
About a decade ago, actually.
Yeah. I spoke
Which
to
is
Williams in Telford about it actually, and his prize money, he's donating all his prize money at this and that John Virgo trophy that they're doing at Goffs. He's playing just for the charity he's an ambassador for.
I
So he'll
saw that.
definitely be playing properly because he said that's going to be almost a different kind of pressure because he definitely
Yeah.
wants to do well for them.
Yeah. No, good way of saying it. But there we are. I think it's our job to call it as we see it, and that's what we've done there. And Phil, we haven't got much longer. I think we've done about an hour just over, actually. Let's just give people the information if they haven't heard. There will be a special memorial service, won't there, in April to honour the life of the wonderful John Virgo. It will be at Sheffield Cathedral on Thursday, April the 16th. So that's 2 days before the start of the World Championship at 1 p.m. I know I'm going to do my 100% level best to get there. And I know some of you will not be able to do that for different geographical reasons. But for those that can, particularly if you're in the UK, it is on April the 16th at 1 p.m. I know Rob Walker and Ken Doherty have been involved with the organising. So it's going to be something that's going to be very emotional, but also I think powerful because there's so
Mm.
many reasons to smile and laugh about John Virgo. Many, many reasons. And I'm sure that'll be part of it as well. Special memorial service on April the 16th at 1 p.m. in Sheffield Cathedral. And just to say, Phil, and it's poignant because it's so near the Crucible. It's poignant
Mm.
anyway, but it's so near the Crucible, isn't it? You're a Sheffield man. You should talk about this, not me, really. And I'll let you do that in a moment. But just to say, thanks for your messages and emails about John Virgo. We're going to bring those to you next week in our next episode. If you've got any more John Virgo messages, memories, the times you enjoyed watching him on television, you may have met John, please do let us know. Send them in by next Monday, if you'd be so kind. And we'll add those to the ones we already have in. We must read those out because you've been kind enough to send them. So tweet us at Talking Snooker or email talkingsnooker@yahoo.com. You may have your memory jogged by some of the memories we'll see on BBC Wales this week, but your emails and messages on John Virgo will be much appreciated. And yeah, I mean, everyone that cares about snooker that is able to get there, well, I'm sure try and get there, Phil. I mean, just before the World Championship, it's an event that we know will be heavy. It'll hang heavy in some ways. Stephen Hendry said, it's going to be, he's dreading it. But that may
Mm.
that may lighten it for us. That may lighten it for snooker because it's going to be not. I'm sure there'll be great sadness. There is great sadness, but I'm sure there'll be celebration too about what was, as Dennis Taylor said on television today, a wonderful life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I'm not sure what's planned for the service in Sheffield, but I'm sure it'll be a celebration and great work from, like you say, Ken and Rob to get that on so quickly. Sheffield Cathedral's a sort of spectacular setting,
It
beautiful
is.
building, in the middle of the city. Yeah, just a few minutes walk from the Crucible, and yeah, I'm sure that's going to be packed. Like, um,
Yeah,
you
I'll
know,
say.
John obviously was from sort of the other side of the Pennines, but he lived just outside of Sheffield for parts of his life, and obviously is incredibly well connected with Sheffield for snooker reasons. So yeah, I'm sure that's going to be hopefully just a great afternoon where everyone sort of shares memories of John. Yeah, I'll certainly be there. Um, and yeah, it sounds weird. I mean, you're not looking forward to because you'd rather not have that event on your calendar, would you? You'd rather that
No.
was not an option. But in a way,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it because I'm sure it'll be a lovely time. So yeah, hopefully see some of you there who are listening.
Absolutely right, Phil. And we're about to go off the air. Quick word about the Crucible. We've just been talking of the aforementioned Crucible, never far from our thoughts, of course, in this sport. There's going to be new seats there. They're called Legends Walk Premium seats as the players walk out to play. And they'll be yours for 160 with quite a few extras, I should say, as part of that. Photo with a trophy, visit from a snooker legend, program radio, etc. All the details on the WST website. I mean, they were our seats for 40 odd years, but that's okay. That's okay. I mean, I'm sure we were told at one stage, oh, they got used to not having room for them. But they made room now. They're going to make a few quid out of it. But anyway, it's going to make a different look to the makeup of it, eh?
Yeah, yeah. I've only seen sort of like a made up computerized image, which made it look like there's a lot of space there for quite a lot of big seats. It's quite hard to imagine when you look at the arena. So I don't know if they're rejigging some, where the corridor where they walk out and stuff. I don't know, but we'll see. Um, but yeah, they look like they'll be great for who sits there. And actually, not. I wouldn't say that's an outrageous price for sort of um, the fancy seats with, like you say, some extras. But we'll see what the setup's like. I'm interested to see it, but yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Interesting change. Wasn't Didn't know anything about that until I got that email.
Yes, it is interesting indeed. And you say it ups the capacity. That's the line a lot of people have gone for. We haven't said that about the
Yeah.
Crucible for quite a long time, to very slightly upping it, but that is a fact. It is upping it. Um, a sad line, Phil, that Peter Williamson, a referee on the World Snooker Tour for 30 years until he retired in 2021, has died at the age of 77. Peter first refereed on the circuit in 1991. He took charge of many televised matches, including several at the Crucible. He named his favourite match as the 2009 Shanghai Masters semi-final between Ronnie O'Sullivan and John Higgins. He was the man in the middle for 7 maximum breaks and also officiated the final of the World Billiards Championship 5 times. This is a copy, I think, from WPBSA. Line here from fellow referee Erin Williams said, Peter and I started on the professional tour at the same time and we became firm friends from the start. Known as a referee with a safe pair of hands, he was an ever present on the circuit. We exchanged visits around 4 times a year, where he'd stay with myself and Alison and I'd stay at his. My final visit to him was just last week. I'm going to miss him terribly. Rest in peace, Pete. So we send our condolences to the family and friends of Peter Williamson, who has died at the age of 77. Phil, any other business? Maybe go to you. You know that you've got lots. I liked, you can mention your Trump and Murphy line. I mentioned it before we came on the air. They're saying the promotion is often lacking, and they both came up with a great line that they're at these different events in Hong Kong or different parts of the UK, and people say to them, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah, that was interesting. That was from Telford. And I sort of I was asking Judd about Hong Kong actually because there's a lot to talk about the scheduling, um, which people actually the players I spoke to don't love it, but they're actually quite sort of sensible in terms of what else are you going to do? You've got to fit a lot of events in. But he did say the sort of promotion. He felt like in Hong Kong there wasn't much evidence of a tournament going on. Um, I'm not there, so I couldn't say. But it did seem like the attendances weren't great. We mentioned after the event that semi-final between Zhang and Zhao. Um, the South China Morning Post said there was about 300 people there. Capacity is about 3,500, so that's not great. But yeah, but both Sean and Judd said that it's not unusual in the UK as well to be in the hotel when you're there for a tournament and people ask why you're there. Um, sometimes I would say that is a bit anecdotal because that could easily happen, and then they could go to a tournament and it'd be a full crowd. Like just because someone's staying in a hotel doesn't mean they're a snooker fan. It just might mean they might recognise Sean Murphy.
Yeah, of
So
course.
there is that side to it. Um, but at the same time, I think people have even said it in the World Championship. You know, it's great round the Crucible and Tudor Square, and that's become a brilliant place. But if you walked 100 yards further up towards Division Street or West Street, the big sort of drinking streets in Sheffield, quickly there's no sign of the Snooker World Championship going on. So it can happen. And I'm not having a pop at World Snooker there because it's very difficult for a sport to just take over a city just when you're landing there for a tournament. That is not an easy thing to do. Um, but it was interesting because I didn't really ask Judd that question. He told that story, and I sort of half put those comments to Sean, and he basically said the exact same thing. So it was a feeling that they both shared about how perhaps marketing and promotion could be better. But at the same time, ticket sales seem to be doing very well and viewing figures going well. So it's not disaster by any means. But yeah, I've got another piece actually coming tomorrow, which was more chats from Telford. Um, a big one about sort of because obviously Ronnie was going to be in that, but he's not. There was interesting comments from Judd and John Higgins and Mark Allen about what it's like with him not being there much anymore, what that means. Is that a problem? Do they notice it? Is it a chance to create new stars? So have a look out for that on Match Live.
Mm. Yeah, we'll do that. It's interesting. What I'd like to know is why some events are a bit better than others for promotion. I remember Newport being really quite good. There was a big poster on the railway station. I always remember seeing different thing, and yet some places there aren't. No, I don't quite know how they pick it. How some seem to be a bit better. But listen,
Mm.
I mean, talk about Hong Kong. I mean, one of the biggest cities in the world. So I mean, not exactly easy to. But listen, I get the gist. I get the gist. I mean, Telford isn't. I don't know what it's like there, but you could definitely do that there, for example. And some of the, Clandidno, the element of it seemed to sort of take over there to some extent. But it's not easy. But yeah, listen, it's definitely been a complaint. And in Hull, that famous week where it didn't sell, there wasn't a great amount of. For a lot of people that were there, said that there wasn't a great amount of signage and what have you. Phil, I'm back with Radio Snooker with Daniel Clark, aka the Green Bays, in a few days' time, and more reflections from there from fans that have written to me on there about John Virgo. I'll also have my next Sporting Life column next week to review the Welsh Open. Enjoy it every day. It's on the BBC, isn't it, here in the UK, and on TNT Sports and Discovery Plus. And no doubt you can look on WST for where it is where you are. And we did more than an hour, but not much more. And we haven't been on the air so much lately, so I think we'll forgive ourselves. Thank you, sir. I salute you. All the best.
Yeah, I look forward to that. I mean, Daniel was a guest on here in what seems like the dim and distant past, but I'll look forward to that Radio Snooker with him. Great voice, and yeah, the BBC Wales is a great. It feels so different to anything else we get all year because obviously we have the BBC, but it's
That's
not
right.
like the other BBC coverages. It's got quite a nice sort of chilled out, relaxed vibe to it. I think Catherine Heller was presenting this morning, and Abby Davies presents as well. And they have nice features and stuff. They had a nice feature with Mark Williams as Kid Joel, who's a budding player. And yeah, it's just got a nice vibe about it. So I do enjoy their coverage, but also it's available on TNT too. But yeah, great week of snooker ahead.
Absolutely. Enjoy, everybody. And thank you very much indeed for your company. We're most grateful. And do get those John Virgo thoughts and memories over to us for the next week. We'd love to include them when we're next on the air next week. So talking snooker on Twitter or email talkingsnooker@yahoo.com. For now then, from your old friends, Phil Haig and Nick Metcalf, cheerio.